All right, folks, so a lot of drinking going on this week, and we had a busy night on Tuesday at Cafe Maxx with our host, the Wine Wizards, and they do a monthly tasting, and, you know, at a very high level. The ones that I've been to, the quality of wines on the table, most excellent to killer. And tonight we did have, you know, a special evening because in addition to, you know, their normal tasting that they had an actual wine producer in, and this is a gentleman, Victor Gallegos. Well, I'm sorry, Victor's his partner. It was Javier Lopez and Michel Mardini who were actually at the event. And this is a group of 3 people, a partnership. They have a winery in the Priorat called the Cellars Melis, and then they have a winery in Southern California called Seasmoke. Seasmoke has become one of the hottest things in Pinot Noir, called Pinot Noir from California. We get just a few 6-packs a year, and I can imagine it was somewhat difficult just finding these 3 bottles in South Florida to show at this tasting. But we started out with a little bit of Charles Mignon Rosé Champagne, very nice grower-producer, and a little Kistler, 2004 Kistler Chardonnay, which was out of this world. I don't know if everybody got to try that, but I found it behind the bar there. Hermes, good job trying to hide that. But nice stuff, everything this evening. We started out with a flight of Seasmoke, and we had the Botella, the Southing, and the 10. And the Botella refers to the word bottle in Spanish, and the Southing refers to the southern exposure of the vineyard, and the 10 refers to the 10 different clones of Pinot Noir in these wines. These wines all outstanding in quality. You know, my favorite was the Southing because the Southing to me had the most finish, had the most length on the finish. It had the greatest balance. You know, the Botella was really pretty, had this lovely kind of cherry candy-like fruit and floral nuance to it, and the Southing had that, but in addition to it, it had this mint and kind of herbaceous note to it, and cola, and a little bit of tea, and really more exotic in the spice category. The finish to me just was a little fresher, a little longer. It had a little more length to it, a little more acidity. And then the Southing, you know, this wine was every bit as complex, maybe just a little heavier than the other 2. But 3 outstanding bottles of Pinot Noir, and, you know, like I said before, Seasmoke has become a phenomenon for a California Pinot Noir. It could have been started with the label shot in the Sideways movie. You know, it doesn't hurt to get a little exposure in a major motion picture. All right, the second flight we had was from the Cellars Melis, and we had the Obrador, which this name means worker. This is the first time they've ever made this wine. And really lovely floral nuance here, and bright red fruit, red cherry, and cranberry. One of the things they're known for in this region, you stick your nose into a glass of Priorat, and you get this kind of fresh herbs, kind of like a Garrigue quality you get from the Southern Rhone, and then this slate and clay-like minerality. You know, the soil here is kind of just straight slate, something you'd find, you know, as a tile floor, broken up, and the vines just growing in between the broken tiles of, you know, slate. Really interesting, and a very high elevation, and also the aspect of the vineyard. You know, I can't imagine how many people break an ankle walking through these vineyards picking. You know, they work the vineyard with a donkey because there's no machines that can, you know, go through this vineyard, and then all the picking is done by hand, you know, because of the elevation, very low yields. It's very expensive to make wine in the Priorat, and, you know, Javier was in on the ground floor. You know, he could have got in with the original 5, but, you know, unfortunately, when they brought him there, you know, he pretty much looked at the area and said, there's no way you guys can make great wine here. So he was wrong, and, you know, his first vintage was 2004 with his label, and this 2008 is the first vintage of this Obrador, their entry-level wine. Something, you know, that's kind of needed from the Priorat. The $100 bottles, the sales have really slowed down from this region, but some of the world's greatest wines, some of Spain's greatest wines coming from the Priorat. The 2008 Melis Elix was next, and this was a barrel sample. It took a little bit for this wine to come around, but after 30 minutes, this wine was really showing nicely. Red cherry, red plum fruit, with an array of that wildflowers and sweet herbs, becoming more and more complex as the night went on. Really nice. You could just see the potential of this wine. And then the 2007 Elix in the first flight. This wine had a lovely thick bouquet of red cherry liqueur-like fruit, notes of red licorice spice, slate-like minerality, and a lovely zesty finish. The 2007 finish, 2007 vintage from the Priorat, maybe a little lighter and a little more on the savory side. And hey, if you guys want to try these wines, we're going to have Javier Lopez here in the store on Saturday from 3 to 4 to try the 3 wines that they have available in this market. All right, the third flight, we had a 2004, 2005, and 2006 Elix. And then the fourth flight, we did 2004, 2005, and 2006 Melis. And Melis refers to a pine tree. And, you know, one of the things they use pine trees for in various places is to find the underground water. Wherever you find these trees growing, you can usually find an underground water source. So you don't want to plant a vineyard if you don't have water. And up here in the high altitude, you know, in the Priorat, one of the things you need to find is water for these grapevines to survive. And not so much when they're old, but when you're just planting the vineyard. There happens to be a lot of old plant material here. There's 100-year-old Grenache and Carignan vines, and they just recently planted things like Cabernet Merlot and Syrah in the Priorat. Okay, for the third flight, rather, the Elis flight, you know, this 2004, a great vintage, and I wanted to like these 2004s, but both of them had a little bit of a funk kind of to the nose and a little bit on the earthy side. You know, one of the things I love about Priorat wines is the forward jammy fruit. And the 2005 and 2006 both had this. For me, I like both of the 2005s better. They just seem to be better balanced. They seem to have better acidity, tannin, and fruit kind of ratio going off. The 2006s, a little bit tannic, a little bit, you know, still maybe young. But both of the wines, excellent. You know what? I mean, it's a selection between these two wines. I didn't see a huge difference in the Elix and the Melis in some of the years here. And, you know, I think I even rated one vintage of the Elix higher than the Melis. So, you know, both excellent wines, though, and then, you know, both kind of overshadowed, though, by the last flight. And when you're going to show producers' wines, you know, a new producer like this, to me, you know, do you want to show benchmark producers afterwards? And Manny Gonzalez broke these wines out of his cellar. Very generous guy. And, man, I'm very happy you did. They were some fabulous wines, but they kind of eclipsed the cellar Melis wines. You know, when you have Clos Martinet on the table, Clos Morgador, Alvaro Palacios Lermita, and Clos Erasmus, you know, the original four, you know, the gang of five that founded the Priorat. There's four of them right there. And unfortunately, the Clos Morgador was corked. So, you know, that one didn't play into the equation. But the Clos Martinet, man, a wonderful mineral-driven wine on the nose. A little bit of a beef stew kind of character coming in there. Something you get from the Priorat wines as they start to age. But lovely spices, tobacco, pencil lead, dark cherry fruit, notes of slate. Very complex bouquet here, and wonderful concentration on the tongue. This wine just had layers and layers of flavor. Wonderful balance, and classic Priorat. Most excellent stuff. The Lermita, to me, just a little bit more explosive. Lovely licorice spice, fine herbs, mint, mineral, slate, graphite coming through. You know, very, very concentrated, but yet not quite as big as the Clos Erasmus. Man, the Clos Erasmus was just, you know, Jolly Rancher candy. This wine just had so much fruit, so concentrated, so thick, and yet balanced at the same time. Man, it had this lovely zip of acidity just holding everything together, just oozing with sweet fruit, slate-like terroir coming out. Killer juice. Thank you very much, guys at the Wine Wizards, for inviting me, and Hermes Ortiz for helping put this together. And hey, if you guys want to taste some of the wines from the Cellar Melis, stop by here at the store Saturday from 3 to 4. That's right, folks, tomorrow morning. I'm your host, Andrew Lamposoni, signing off from the Wine Watch, saying remember, always drink the good stuff first.